Finance 2016-17 Budget Adoption. Over the last several meetings, the Board has reviewed the development of the 2016-17 budget. At the August 8th meeting, the Board approved the notice of hearing provided in Appendix 1, which was then published and establishes the maximum amounts for the 2016-17 budget. The notice was published on August 11th, 2016 in the Wichita Eagle, and the public hearing was held at the beginning of this meeting. This agenda item will include a presentation of the budget. The Board will have an opportunity to ask questions and discuss the proposed budget. Following the Board's adoption, the 2016-17 budget will be sent to Sedgwick County and the Kansas State Department of Education. It is recommended that the Board adopt the 2016-17 budget.
Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. Good evening, President Logan, Superintendent Allison, members of the Board. Tonight is the culmination of 8 months of very difficult and sometimes heartbreaking work by the Board and district employees to reach a balanced budget for the 2016-17 school year. To say it's been a challenging budget cycle would be an understatement. With the block grant sunsetting at the end of this fiscal year, I don't know that we have a whole lot to look forward to as far as not being a challenging year coming up. In fact, we'll probably see me again at the table here in just a few short months, going through some of the scenarios and starting to plan for 17-18. But for tonight, I am pleased to give you a final recap of fiscal year 17 budget and that we will be recommending for adoption tonight. You are approving tonight the maximum budget authority for fiscal year 2017 that's set by the revenues we're going to receive. You are also approving the mill levy, which will be lower for fiscal year 17. So those are the two primary pieces that we're asking you to approve as part of the budget adoption tonight. The overall net budget is higher compared to last year. This is partly due to the equalization state aid. And that with most of this additional funding comes some additional restrictions, which we'll talk about. What are our budget increases and restrictions? Primarily, we're looking at the $4.9 million in capital outlay. By statute, this is restricted to repairs and maintenance, computer software, property, and equipment. That was the intent of the fund, is to maintain our facilities. We have $320,000 increase to the budget in extraordinary needs. This is part of the budget, but we will not spend any of this money until we are ensured that we will receive it. And if you recall, the extraordinary needs is contingent upon the sale of the Bioscience Authority. So while this money is in the budget, we are holding on these expenditures. And then there is about a $1 million increase in the virtual funding, which is restricted to the use under the virtual programs. So again, looking one last time at our fiscal year 17 state aid, overall, our total state aid is up about $24.5 million. But once we factor out CAPERS, which is the pass-through item, the LOB increase, which went to property tax relief, extraordinary needs, special ed, really we're left with about a $2.5 million increase to the general fund. Looking at the mill levies one last time, our overall mill levy will go down by 2.643 mills. That's primarily due to equalization in the LOB and a little bit in bond and interest. Just a historical look back at the mill levies. You can see just in the past 4 years, we are sitting at an all-time low. But if you went back even further to fiscal year 09, we're at a low to that point. So we're doing pretty well on the mill levy. So overall, looking at the net budget after transfers, our budget for fiscal year 17 will be sitting at $662 million. Compare that to last year, which was $647.8. That was without equalization. The year before that, though, was $683.9 million. So tonight, the administration is recommending that the board adopt the 2016-17 budget as proposed, with the maximum budget authority of $662 million, with the mill levy set at 53.635 mills.
And just a couple comments. As we work to get to this point, what is required by statute for the Board of Education is to approve that legal maximum budget and the mill levies that would fund that budget, and that information is contained in the specific forms that at your approval of the budget then are sent to the county. I think oftentimes folks get confused that you're approving line item budgets and individual department budgets. What you're really approving is that maximum spending authority, and you have a lot of approval and checks as we move through the year, but it's that bigger picture, and there will be comments that will be made when folks will point out, well, your budget went up $24 million, or your budget is up over last year in the total spending authority. The equalization is a huge factor. The CAPERS is a significant factor. When it comes to our day-to-day operating dollars, the block grant has maintained that on a fairly flat basis. We will have some additional revenue because of the new facility weighting, but that's very limited in what we're receiving in ways that we can utilize that around our general fund. So it's really the new facility weighting and the capital outlay equalization that give us any flexibility in this budget as we move forward. But I have had some questions from some of our patrons that don't quite grasp what you all are approving and how that budget's developed. So it's always a good opportunity to talk about what we have to follow and how we do this and how you all work diligently to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. So that's what you see in our proposal this evening for your approval.
Okay, Lynn?
I went back and looked at some old budgets. I've got a filing cabinet full of them, and I noticed the very first budget I voted on when I joined the board, the mill levy was 54.926, and so this is a decrease, and I'm really glad that we were able to do that. Our taxpayers have been paying a higher amount on their property tax because of the lack of work on the part of the legislature in terms of doing what they need to do. And so with the special session and the equity ruling, we're able to pass that on. Now, I've had discussions with a number of constituents that still don't quite understand why or how that works. And I guess I just wanted to point out again that, as John said, that our budget is up $24 million. Everybody keeps thinking, well, you cut $22 million, and how does that work? And I just want to remind people that the budget is a complicated project. When you're talking about all kinds of different funds, there's all kinds of rules and laws that the legislature has put on these funds of what we can spend, when we can spend them, how we can spend them, when we get the funding, when we don't get the funding. You can't just look at a number and compare this year's budget to last year's budget and really truly understand it. You really have to understand the ins and the outs. You have to read the footnotes, just like you do in a financial statement for a business. So I would encourage people that have questions, make sure they ask. All of this is online, I'm assuming again.
Yes.
I mean, you can
Right,
go back
it's on our
previous
website.
years and look at it. There really is a lot of information there, and so and even the whole concept of our mill levy, comparing 16 years ago to today. Yes, our assessed value is higher and everything, but again, our mill levy is determined by the funding formula of how much we can spend. Unlike if assessed values go up, it does help our capital outlay, but it doesn't help anything else. It makes us reduce bond and interest and supplemental in general and some of those kind of things. So I guess I just want to stress to people that they do need to study it and understand it in order to But again, we've got people that are willing to talk to people about that and answer any questions that they have. And I want to say thank you to you and your staff for any questions that we've had. Again, it's been a very difficult process. None of us, like to see the cuts and changes that we've made. But at the end of the day, we do have to pass a balanced budget. Again, something that not every elected official in Kansas does, unfortunately. So thank you.
Mr. Rogers, if you have 15 years of budget information that you're looking at on a regular basis, there is help for that. We can point you in the right direction.
Yes, I would move that we take the recommended action and approve the 2017-18 budget, 16-17 budget.
Okay. Just one thing before we take a vote. I do want to offer our thanks to you and your team and Mr. Freeman as he helped develop this, because this has been a work in progress for a long time. And you have done yeoman's work in bringing information to the board so that we can make the best decisions possible. And I feel like this budget does that. So thank you, and thank your team for us, please.
I will do that. Thank you.
We do have a motion on the floor by Lynn and a second by Jeff. Please cast your ballot. The budget passes 5-0. Thank you very much. You can breathe a sigh of relief.
I will.
Next item.